Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidyam Ravindam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhikamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, Mark, can you tell us where we are in our text?
Today we're beginning with number 14.
Number 14 in the first chapter. And Puneet, can you help us out, please?
Tasya hetu samanabhi haraputra dhvanishrutau iha nadi pravidyaiva vyamohaika nibandhanam. In the above illustration, the cause of the obstruction to the voice of the son being fully recognized is the chorus of voices of all the boys. Here, the one cause of all contrary experience is indeed the beginningless avidya.
So the idea that we're getting at is the self is not something to be achieved, to be acquired, to be attained. In fact, it is an eternal factor. It's always there. But something obscures my perception of it. So even though it's there, I can't seem to realize it. And the metaphor that Vidyaranya is giving us is you have to imagine, say, 20 boys, and they're all chanting Veda. And this father has his son as one of the boys, and he knows his son's voice, but he can't pick it out because of the chorus. So if, on the other hand, we were removing all the other voices until only his son's voice was there. Yes, that's my son chanting, and he made a mistake. So you can remove what obfuscates, what gets in the way. Now, for you and me, what gets in the way? In the beginning, it is what we call vimarsha, deliberation. So one of the paradigms that we have is awareness is prakasha, it is the light. And then there's vimarsha, the various thoughts, feelings, perceptions, memories, etc. Whatever it is you want to call it, gets in the way. So our job is not to get something, but to remove from our attention everything that is removable. Now, the modern day example I like to use is, did we talk about the swimming pool last week? No. No. Okay. So when I was a kid, we would go to a pool party over at neighbor's house. All the young people would be in the pool. And one of the girls was be wearing a necklace. And somehow the chain would come loose or break and she'd lose it. She'd, oh, I've lost my necklace. And while everyone is splashing in the pool, you can't see it. So what do they tell us to do? Everybody out of the pool or just stand still. What does that do? That allows the water to subside at the surface and become clear. Oh, there's the necklace down by the 4-foot mark. And someone dives in and gets it. So also, because of the disturbances of the mind, the vrittis, I cannot see, I cannot notice who and what I really am. So this is why in practice, what do we start with? Sit in meditation. What's the first thing we do in meditation? The immobilization of the senses. Some new agey meditations say, well, I put on music or I go on YouTube and do a guided meditation. That's not Vedanta meditation. We immobilize the senses. We withdraw our awareness from seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. We may have a point of concentration. It can be the breath. In Gita, Krishna says, japa is the king of yogas. We can put our attention on a mantra. As the mind gets caught up in various stories of thinking, in the beginning, we gently but firmly bring our attention back. And when the mind gets even more quiet, let go of the mantra. With the attentive faculty turned within. Koham, who am I? What is my essential nature? Any thoughts on this practice? Next verse.
Sorry.
Was there one out there in Zoom land? Please.
Yes, this is Sheila.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi. Sorry, I just have a very lazy question, but I've had this for a while. But in meditation, why do we have to sit erect? You know, the spine should be erect. I know that's good practice, but I was wondering if you know why.
It's a very good question, and there are several reasons.
Okay.
First, if your spine is collapsed, it's going to hurt after about 10, 15 minutes. That's the first. So an erect spine actually is the most comfortable. Now, in India, where chairs are not the custom and people sit on the floor, most Indians have a much stronger lower back than us Westerners, or even Indians who were raised in the West with chairs. So in the West, we suggest that you sit in a straight back chair with your feet flat on the floor and your back erect. There are energetic reasons as well, which have to do with the movement of the Kundalini energy. In Vedanta, we don't talk about it too much, unless someone starts to have an experience, and we'll talk about it. But it allows the energy to move up and down the energies in the spine, the sushumna. And so eventually that energy starts at the base of the spine and eventually opens the crown chakra. Now, if you're ill, you can meditate in a chair or lying down. In the end, posture is secondary.
Okay.
Those are good questions. They're not lazy questions.
Okay.
Does anyone else have anything to add?
If I'm not sitting erect, then I fall asleep.
Very good point. When I'm doing a meditation retreat and I'm observing the participants, one of the first things I will notice if the mind is going towards what we call laya, falling asleep. First of all, the head starts to nod, and then the posture starts to collapse. And in some of the Zen traditions, they have what's called the Kiyusaku stick. So the retreat master goes around and goes, whack, wakes you up.
Wow. Okay.
Good question. Any other ones? Next verse.
Chidananda Maya Brahma Pratibimba Samanvita Tamo Raja Sattva Guna Prakriti Dve Vidha Jasa. Prakriti, the primordial substance, is that in which there is the reflection of Brahman, that is pure consciousness and bliss, and is composed of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas in a state of homogeneity. It is of two kinds.
So Vedanta borrows the language of the Sankhya philosophy. In the Sankhya philosophy, we have these three gunas, tamas, rajas, and sattva. Tamas, the principle of darkness, illusion, covering, ignorance. Rajas, the principle of activity, motion. And sattva, the principle of non-activity, of stillness, clarity. And the Sankhya say before creation, the three gunas are in equilibrium. These three gunas comprise Prakriti, the stuff of creation. And then when they go out of balance, manifestation happens. Unfortunately, the Sankhya's never talk about what makes them go out of balance. Vedantins do not adhere to that belief system. We use the terms to talk also about the qualities of mind. Now we have to understand this word prakriti, which means nature, has two meanings, just like the English word nature. So you can go up to Muir Woods and walk through the redwoods and enjoy the beauty of nature, meaning the stuff of the natural world. But you can also say, oh, did you hear that terrible joke that Jim told last night? Well, that's just his nature. He's just got the worst sense of humor. So here we can use nature meaning the essence of something. So Prakriti has both meanings. So in the Sankhya philosophy, we have this distinction: Purusha, spirit; Prakriti, nature. And the Sankhya's say that each one of us is an individual Purusha and all entangled in Prakriti, and yoga is about getting out. That's not what Vedanta says. Essentially, what we call Prakriti is pratibimba. It is a reflection. It doesn't really exist. May I ask a favor of you?
Sure.
Would you go into the curio cabinet and bring out the crystal ball? And you'll have to translate this for your folks.
Sure.
Thank you. So this is quartz crystal, spatika, we call it in Sanskrit. It is a rock. This is a rock. What's the difference? This has no property to create reflections. No pratibimba, no chaya. But if you look in the crystal ball, can you see an image in the crystal ball? Yes?
Yes.
So tell them what's going on.
તો મમ્મી પપ્પા બંને પથ્થર છે પણ જે આ ક્રિસ્ટલ બોલ છે એની ક્વોલિટી છે કે રિફ્લેક્ટ કરે પેલા પથ્થરનો નથી.
Now, can I get a saw, cut open the crystal ball, and pull out the reflection? Is there really a reflection in the crystal ball? Yes or no?
No.
Well, I see it in there. Come on, get out, get out, get out. No, there's nothing there. It appears to be there. Now, does the spatika go through tamas, rajas, and sattva? It is kutusta, still immovable. Consciousness is vijnana ganam. That's the term that's used in Mandukya Upanishad. A homogeneous mass of consciousness. Like this is a homogeneous mass of stone. But like the spatika, consciousness has a property whereby all this appears, like the images in the crystal ball seem to appear. One of my favorite metaphors from scripture. I just happen to have a crystal ball. So you in Zoomland, were you able to see that?
Yes, Jim.
Okay, great. So we have to understand that when we talk, would you be so kind as to let me get the fingerprints off of it. It's heavy. My grandfather acquired that. That's about 120 years old. Thank you. So, when we talk about Prakriti, nature, and the gunas, and tamas, sattva, and rajas, understand that nothing is really created. Now, what we have here, would you read the English one more time so I make sure I use the same language he does?
Prakriti is that in which there is the reflection of Brahman, that is pure consciousness and bliss, and is composed of sattva, rajas, and tamas.
Okay, so now another teaching. I haven't used this in a while. This is a mirror. Is there a light in the mirror or not? Is it shining over there? There we go. Is there a light in the mirror?
No.
Sure seems like it. You can shine it on things. So, does the mirror shine? No, there's a light. But the mirror has the property of being able to have a reflection which illumines. So also, consciousness is one without a second. But in this dreamlike world, you have a body, mind, intellect. I have a body, mind, intellect, etc. Each is individual. That one consciousness strikes the subtle intellect, and we get chit chaya, the reflection of consciousness. Swamiji used to say, the reflection of consciousness caught in the web of thought. He's a poet. So it seems like Jim, got up this morning. Jim, had a bagel with cream cheese. I went up to Piedmont Avenue. I had curry and rice for lunch. I came home and talked with my friend Jared for a couple hours. You didn't have that experience. So our direct experiences, I, as an individual, illumine my own world of experiences. But that illuminator is Chit Chaya. So it seems like I'm Jim and you are Puneet, etc. But here's another interesting metaphor. On Diwali in India, on the 4th of July in America, we have sparklers. They have sparklers in India?
Yes.
Okay. And you have them on Diwali?
Yes.
So at night, you light the sparkler. You go like this. And there's a circle in the sparkler. Make a figure 8. There's a figure 8 in the sparkler. There's the circle in the sparkler, but I can't grab the circle in the sparkler. And when I stop moving the sparkler, where does the circle go? Now, it's not like fishing line and a fishing reel. No, the world does not proceed. It appears. So this intellect that is so powerful, that has this quality of reflecting the whole creation. I, Jim, see, hear, taste, touch, smell, feel, think. But when I stop the vimarsha, when I stop the vrittis, when I stop the flow of thought, that personal sense of self is gone. The Ch.1 seemed to be nothing but chit. This is the great value of samadhi. Even before samadhi, we get a hint of this every night in deep sleep. Every night in deep sleep, the mind is folded up in pure ignorance. And in that state, consciousness just illumines the pure darkness of ignorance. But there's no individual self and no world. And listen carefully, no suffering. So in meditation, even if it's just for moments, tune up the mind. Introvert the attentive faculty. Notice who you are. And the individuality falls. And I see what's there. Aham brahmasmi. Chidananda rupam. So what Vidyaranya is talking about is what we call anyonya adhyasa, mutual superimposition. I superimpose upon myself the qualities of the not self. I think I'm the body. I think I'm my feelings. I think I'm my thought. I think I'm the ahankriti. But then I superimpose on the world the qualities of the self. The couch is over there and it has existence. Punit is over there and he's a conscious sentient being separate from me. And Nilang is over there and he makes me very happy. There's my ananda. It's all an illusion. What's the truth? I am not the body, not the mind, not the thoughts, not the ahankara. Sakshi, the witness of it all. What is this world? Just like the reflection in the crystal ball. Seen, but not real. Any thoughts on this? He gets deep real fast, doesn't he? All right, next verse.
So Jim, the images in the crystal ball are ephemeral because of the fact that it's reflecting light. But the ephemeral nature of this world is also true, but the duration is based on the laws of the material.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we don't, the scientists used to think the Big Bang was 13.8 billion years ago. Now they're wondering, well, maybe that's not true. We don't know how old the universe is. The Vedas say there's cyclic creation, the various yugas and kalpas and stuff like that. It appears for a long time. Let's just put it down.
And that gives the illusion of its permanence.
Yes, but everything in it is impermanent. And certainly your belief that it's held together and you can remember how long and permanent it is. Well, that's an illusion too. What's the date today? The 5th of June, 2023. What were you doing on the 5th of June in 2013? No idea. Huge gaps in our memory. But you are an eternal factor. So you just assume, memory is tying that all together. Yourself is outside of time. Memory is what gives us the illusion of time. It's a really cool thing. For example, if you have a dream and it's very complicated and you're in a house and you're going to different floors and trying to find a door to get out and you can't, and this goes on and on and on, it's very stressful. The scientists say you can look at somebody's eyes underneath their eyelids and they have what's called REM, rapid eye movement. And the dream inside that seems so long is at best a minute and a half. So time itself is created by the mind. And the astrophysicists, it's beyond my understanding. If you were traveling at the speed of light, what would you perceive? Very strange stuff. If you were inside a black hole, they say that time would essentially stop. Next verse.
Sattvashuddhya vishuddhyabhyam maya vidhye cha te mate maya bimbo vashikritya tam syat sarvagnya ishvaraha. When the element of sattva is pure, prakriti is known as maya. When impure, being mixed up with rajas and tamas, it is called avidya. Brahman reflected in maya is known as the omniscient Ishvara who controls maya.
Yes. So when sattva predominates in my mind, I see the world as it really is. Sarvam kalvidam brahma. This world is verily Brahma. When it is tinged with tamas and rajas, then the mind is covered by ignorance. I think I am a person, The world of name and form is separate from me, and elements of it are joy-giving and misery-producing, and I must struggle to maximize the joy and avoid the misery. Now, what he refers to here is a very important principle. Cosmically, Brahman reflected through Maya itself, the inscrutable power of the infinite. Remember, the locus of Maya is Brahman itself. We call it Ishvara. So, this phenomenal world, even though it is illusory and like a dream, Swamiji used to say it is a cosmos, not a chaos. It's organized and it's intelligent. And I'm not going to spend much time in it tonight, but if you pursue the logic of the intelligence of the universe, one of the things we come to understand is it is ruled by a beneficent law of love. It's not a hostile universe. It's a beneficent universe, which is why when I let go of the struggle, I go with the flow of what's happening, I get this experience of grace in my life. Pathetically, if I fight the flow, and I think Ishvara is an underachiever. He may have tested high on his test scores, but he's only a B-. I think he's not doing it my way, is what I'm really saying. And then I struggle and fight. Then my life becomes burdensome. Take it easy. Don't worry. Be happy. It's all going to work out. God's in charge. Enjoy. Understanding God's laws, which is the fundamental impermanence of all form. Any thoughts on this? There's a very famous Zen koan. From where you are sitting, move the distant boat across the water. This is not about developing psychic powers. It means the same intelligence that's seating you right now in my living room is moving cars up and down Grand Avenue and spinning galaxies and stars coming into existence and supernova, all of it. Just like you don't have to go grow, grow, grow to your hair and nails. I don't have to go thump, 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 thump. What are you doing? I'm making my heart beat. thump, 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 thump. No. Ishvara is doing it. But I've got to manage my stock portfolio. I've got to impress my boss at work. I have to work so hard. And I'm so disappointed. My candidate didn't win in the election. What we learn is this radical, perpetual acceptance. That's what Priya calls it. I just love that expression. It's the deeper understanding of santosha. Real contentment. Any thoughts on this?
He says Brahman reflected in Maya, which seems like the opposite usage of the word. And since Maya is in Brahman.
I wouldn't worry about it. Brahman reflected in Maya is Ishvara. To use the paradigm we get in Mandukya Upanishad, you've got Jagat, Hiranyagarbha, total mind, Ishvara. So the first manifestation in Maya is Ishvara. That's how I read it. You may have a different interpretation. Please understand, the scriptures are maximum meaning with minimum words. You can come to your own understanding. But with Vidyaranya, I would assume he knows what he's talking about. I wouldn't get caught up in trying to figure it out. I'm going to take a little side journey here. Shankara talks about the 3 levels of vasana. Deha vasana, vasanas of the body, wanting to be touched and all that business. Loka vasana. These are all our social interactions, approval, affection, love, status. Shastravasana, which the outer meaning is unnecessary study of the scriptures. But the deeper meaning is I need to figure stuff out. Yeah, I want it to be logical. I want, systematic knowledge. And that in itself can be a trap. It is reasonable, but I'm not saying that it's always consistent. Is that useful? All right, next verse.
Avidya vashagastvanya tatvai chitra danekada sakarana shariram syat pragnyas tatrabhimanavan. But the other, that is the jiva, which is Brahman reflected in avidya, is subjected to avidya, impure sattva. The jiva is of different grades due to degrees, admixture of rajas and tamas with sattva. The avidya nescience is the causal body. When the jiva identifies himself with this causal body, he is called prajna.
Okay, so now he's beginning to make reference to the terms that we find in Mandukya Upanishad. Now, Mandukya Upanishad is the most subtle of all the Upanishads, and it's also the shortest. It's only 12 mantras. It is traditionally studied alongside what we call the Gaudapada Karika. A Karika is different than a Bhashya. A Bhashya is a full-fledged commentary. So you read the Shankara Bhashya on so many things, you'll go through word for word for word. A Karika, Swamiji translates it as a gloss. A gloss, what that word means in English, is notes in a margin of a book. So, in the Mandukya Upanishad, we have the breakdown, the exegesis of Om. Om, the word, is all this. That which is beyond this world is also Om. Om is divided into Chatushpada, 4 quarters. A, U, Ma, and silence. A stands for the waking state. U for the dream state. Ba for the deep sleep state. And the silence is the Turiya. It's not a 4th state of consciousness, state of mind. It is the awareness in which the 3 mind states revolve. It's 4th in our series of discussion. It's not another state. Please understand that. People get all confused going, what are you doing? I'm trying to get to Turiya. No, you're just trying to get high. Not like that. Then what the Upanishad breaks down is he calls the gross physical world Vishwa. And the one who sees it is Vaishwanara, Nara, the man, the person who knows the Vishwa. That's the waker. Taijasa is the universal dreamer, meaning the entire subtle world of thoughts and feelings. On the macrocosm, he will call it Hiranyagarbha, the total mind. On the individual basis, it's our Sukshma Sharira, our subtle body. Then the deep sleep state he calls Prajna, which is pure ignorance, pure vasana. He equates that on the macrocosm with Ishvara. For you and me, it's the state of deep sleep. It is our own individual bundle of vasanas. Vaishwanara, Taijasa, Prajna. Those are the terms that he's borrowing from Mandukya. With that in mind, would you read the verse again in English?
But the other, that is the jiva, which is Brahman reflected in avidya, is subjected to avidya, impure sattva. The jiva is of different grades due to the degrees admixture of rajas and tamas with sattva. The avidya nascience is the causal body. When the jiva identifies himself with this causal body, he is called prajna.
So my individual causal body, karana sharira, I experience in deep sleep. So I'm a retired musician. You're a retired software engineer.
Say retired, but
But both of us have the same experience in deep sleep. I know nothing. But because of my prajna, my causal body, I wake up in the morning as a musician. You wake up in the morning as a software engineer. You see. And each of us has that vasana bundle. It's called the causal body because even though it's in a seed state, when it becomes activated, then you wake up and you act in the world. But we can't determine the nature of the vasanas from that state. We can only infer what they are from their effects. Just like, for example, if I have spring bulbs to plant in my garden, I used to raise dahlias when I lived in the city. And if I got them all mixed up, I had to dig them up every year and put them in the freezer to give them a fake winter because it never got cold enough. But was this a dinner plate dahlia, great big one, or was this a little small pom-pom one? Well, you couldn't tell from the bulbs. They were in a seed form. Likewise, deep sleep for you and for you and for you and for you and for me is the same. But in it are the seeds for our expression of the world. And here, Vidyaranya defines this as the Karana Sharira. He also calls it, quoting Mandukya Upanishad, calls it Prajna. It's a little technical. Any thoughts about this? And what's my experience in deep sleep? I know nothing. It is pure ignorance. All right, next verse.
Tama pradhana prakrite tadbhogayeshwaragyaya priyat pavanate jumbu bhuvo bhutani jagjire. At the command of Ishvara and for the experience of prajna, the five subtle elements, ether, air, fire, water, and earth, arose from the part of Prakriti in which tamas predominates.
Okay, so what he's going to go into now is what we call the Pancha Karana. I used to struggle with this in my early sadhana. The tanmatras, the subtle elements, earth, air, fire, water, and ether. I'm going, no, earth is not an element. Helium is an element. Iron is an element. Oxygen is an element. We know that. The ancients were stupid. They just didn't know. Ignorant, not stupid, ignorant. And later on, I began to see, no, Jim, they're talking about something far more subtle. And the five tanmatras have to do with Vedanta's understanding of perception. The way I like to explain it is this. So we can all see the table. What's the table made of? Wood. What's wood made of? Cellulose. What's cellulose? Largely carbon. That's how we would describe it in the waking state. Isn't that right? Yes, no?
Yes.
If, on the other hand, we were dreaming right now, and we looked at the coffee table, it would appear as wood. It would appear cellulose, carbon, etc. But if I woke up and was saying, gosh, I had this dream, I was sitting in my living room looking at my coffee table. What was that coffee table made of? Seeability, hearability, touchability, smellability, and of course I spilled salsa on it in my dream, tasteability. Earth is the element of smell. Fresh earth, if you've ever been in an agrarian environment. We live in cities, we don't get it that much. But fresh tilled earth has its unique smell. Air is touch. I can feel the wind on my skin. Fire is seeability. At night, it is the fire that allows me to see. Water, tasteability. Earth, air, fire, water, space, akasha, ether. Hearability. Bing, you hear it in space. So, the coffee table of my dream is a combination of seeability, hearability, tasteability, touchability, smellability, earth, air, fire, water, and ether. Each object is its own unique combination. Now, they are in their subtle form in the dream state. What yoga says is, in this gross physical world, we have what's called the Panchadasi, the fivefold division and subsequent recombination. So, space splits, half space, and the other is mixture of the five other elements. They get very technical. The easiest way to understand it is this physical plane is just like the subtle plane. It's just grosser. It's a grosser vibration. What do I mean by gross? It's moving at a slower vibration. So for example, if I'm at the keyboard of the piano, the low notes on the piano are a slower vibration than the high notes. Now this is interesting. If you go to the symphony and you hear a violin play a note, and you hear a flute play the same note, and then an oboe play the same note, it's the same pitch, but they all sound different because of the various overtones, which are nothing more than various subtler vibrations that sound, which create the unique sound of each instrument. In a sense, this world is no different. It's what makes all the objects appear. So the point of it all is, this world is not created. It is not manifested. It is imagined. In the great text Yoga Vasishta, we answer 3 questions. Who am I? What is this world? And how has it come about? So what Vidyaranya is talking about is that 3rd question. I'm going to make it simple for you. Sankalpa. Who can tell me what the definition of sankalpa is?
Desire, thought, intention.
Wish, will, thought, desire, intention. It's so many. Here is the law of sankalpa. I'll tell you what a sankalpa is. A sankalpa is the process whereby a thought appears as a thing. That's what it is. So any wish, will, thought, intention, desire, consistently maintained, that's not contradicted or conflicted, tends towards grossification. It goes from the subtle plane, the pure tanmatras, in through the panchakaranam, into what appears as the gross physical world. That's all that's really going on. Now, my sankalpa and your sankalpa, well, ours is not too consistent. It's frequently conflicted, often contradicted. But Ishvara's sankalpa lasts for a long time. The power and intention and will of God. So Vidyaranya gets quite technical here. It's really a lot easier to understand once you get the philosophy of perception that's behind the whole teaching around the tanmatras, the 5 elements. Are there any thoughts or questions about this? It's not really in contradiction to modern science. All right. So with that in mind, read the verse one more time.
At the command of Ishvara and for the experience of Prajna, the 5 subtle elements, ether, air, fire, water, and earth, arose from the part of Prakriti in which tamas predominates.
Yeah, so he's beginning to get into this whole mythology of how the tanmatras arose, the way it's set out in scripture. But I think the way I explained it gives you the essential understanding of it. Next verse.
Satvan Shai Panchabhistesham Kramad Dhinindriya Panchakam Shrotra Vaga Shira Shrotra Vaga Shirasana Grana Kya Mupajayate. From the Satya part of the 5 subtle elements of Prakriti arose in turn the 5 subtle sensory organs of hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell.
Yes, so here he's saying the sense objects and the sense organs are all just simply dimensions of these tanmatras. From the sattva part, which is the knowing part, seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. Going on.
Tairanta karanam sarvai vritti bhedena tadvidha mano vimarsha rupam syat buddhi syat nishchayatmika. From a combination of them all, that is sattva portions of the 5 subtle elements, arose the organ of inner conception called antakarana. Due to difference of function, it is divided into 2. Manas, mind, is that aspect whose function is doubting, and buddhi, intellect, is that whose function are discrimination and determination.
All right, let me back up to one more element. So when perception of the world happens, there is a sentient phase and there's an inert phase. So I know the phone, I know the glass. The glass doesn't know the phone doesn't know the glass. So that's the tamas part. Knowing part, the sense organ, is the subtle part. So that's what he meant by that distinction. Now, in the next verse, I'm having a major senior moment. Read it one more time for me.
From a combination of them all, that is, that sattva portions of the 5 subtle elements, arose the organ of inner conception called antakarana.
Okay, yes. So don't worry about, is this manas, mind, or is this buddhi, intellect? What Vidyaranya is saying, it's only a distinction of function. So the best example that I can use, this is chitta, this is the stuff that I knows. Think of it like the monitor on your computer. So when I'm running Excel, what shows up on the monitor? Spreadsheets. When I'm running Microsoft Word, what shows up on the monitor? Word processor. When I run Microsoft Outlook, I really still use that. Mail client shows up. So the monitor is just there. It's what I see. What differs is function. So when I'm illuminating senses, I call it the senses, sense objects. When I'm illuminating feelings, judgments, I call it manas, mind. When I'm illuminating thoughts, I call it buddhi. But it's only a difference of function. So don't worry about trying to figure out what, which slot you need to put it in. Absolutely unimportant. What's most important is if I can know it, that isn't me. I'm not anything in the physical world. I am not a feeling. I'm not a thought. And I'm not the chit-chaya. The light reflected in the mirror is not the light. That personal sense of self reflected in the subtle intellect is not the real self. Remember our Alata Shanti, our sparkler getting quiet. Stop the mind, you stop moving. Quit believing the mind. and the world is no longer problematic. It's just the play of the Tanmatyas. Pretty to look at. Brahma, Satyam, Jagan. What's the next one?
Nitya.
Yeah. Nitya means what? Unreal, illusory, fake news. Okay, that's a good place to stop. What verse are we on for next week?
21.
21.
Yes. All right. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.